Recently, I saw a video on YouTube of someone going through one of the most notoriously unsafe neighborhoods in Buenos Aires, Villa 31, or as they would say here, Villa 31. And it kind of got me thinking, as someone who's currently staying in Buenos Aires as a tourist, as a foreigner, what are my thoughts on how safe the city is? Would I recommend it? Would I still live here? Would I like to come back? So in this video, I want to go through what I personally think, being a foreigner staying in Buenos Aires, would I come back here? Is it safe? What are my thoughts on all of that? So without further ado, let's get into the video. Don't mind me, I'm gonna enjoy a cheeky little quilmes on this delightful afternoon here in Buenos Aires. Welcome back to the channel, my name's Alex, this is the Lifting Nomad, and if you're new here, I have been to 18 countries over the last 2 years, mostly through Latin and South America. And I'm someone who didn't learn Spanish natively. I had to learn it online and taking tutoring classes for quite some time, and my fluency is still really not that great. But I have the unique perspective of being someone who's been through a lot of these countries, and I've traveled to quite a lot of places over the last little bit. So I've kind of gotten a good grasp on what I would consider unsafe, what I would consider risky, all of that good stuff. So I do want to preface this by saying I am staying in the Palermo Soho neighborhood, which is generally considered to be the most safe, the most expensive neighborhood in Buenos Aires. But the reality is BA, just like every other major city in the world, has its areas that are not that safe. This shouldn't come as a surprise to you if you go to any major city in North America, New York, LA, Chicago. All of these cities have places that are not that safe. Even as a Canadian coming from like Toronto or Vancouver, maybe a little bit safer overall, but there are still a little bit of seedy areas that I wouldn't recommend you go and you dress like an asshole, wear a fancy watch and have your iPhone out. You're likely still gonna be okay anywhere in Canada, but there of course are some places that things go bad. People get robbed in Canada all the time. It's not that crazy. And I also do want to mention, I've been in BA. Last year I was here about 3 months, and I just got back here this year. I've been here about a week. So I've had a chance to explore and get used to the neighborhood and get groceries and go out at night and go to restaurants and meet some people. So I think I've gotten a pretty good grasp over the last little bit, given that I've spent a lot of time here over the years, of what is safe and what's not safe. And I will say our first week here, I'm in a pretty big group. I'm traveling with about 12 or 13 other people, and a few of them are actually a part of a bigger traveling group of 50 people. So what does that mean? Well, it means we're gonna have a lot of exposure to different things. When you have 60, let's say 60 people traveling together, all with different interests and what they're trying to do, they're gonna see different parts of the city, they're gonna get exposed to different things. And with our first night out, we actually had 2 people in our group get their phones stolen from a nightclub here in Buenos Aires called Kika. And if you Google the reviews of Kika, it's actually pretty well known for being a lot of notoriety for having issues with pickpocketing and thieves in the club. It is what it is. It's, BA, I would say, like, just overall is not known necessarily for its violent crime. There's a lot of like pickpocketing and scams in the richer neighborhoods, but it's not as common as I would say like in Colombia, where a lot of times the robberies are pretty violent. Like you get held at gunpoint and you have to give up all your shit. Usually doesn't happen as much here. It's more so likely that you're just gonna get some kid coming to your table trying to sell socks, and when you're not paying attention, he's gonna swipe your iPhone and then it's gone. So overall, what do I think? Is it a safe city? Well, let's talk about the neighborhoods. So you've kind of got Palermo, which combines Soho and Hollywood, and these are 2 of the most famous neighborhoods in BA, probably the most expensive and the most safe. Very, very massive neighborhood. I was in Paris earlier this summer, and one of the things that we did a tour for was like a food and wine tasting tour, and I was talking to the girl about like how I thought Paris was a very walkable, very small city. And she told me it's about 3 hours to walk end to end or like lengthwise of the Paris downtown core. And I would say the Palermo area alone would probably take you about 2 hours, maybe a little bit less than that, to walk end to end. So that's the kind of scale we're talking about. Not quite the same size as metropolitan Paris, but either way, a very, very large neighborhood that has thousands of places to eat and drink, and it's just a massive, massive neighborhood. And this tends to be where historically the most affluent Argentinians live. The last like 20 years or so, it's became much more of a tourist destination. So a lot of the fancier hotels and like apartments that you can stay in long-term are located in this neighborhood. Sorry, so like drilling next door. So what other neighborhoods are safe for you to stay in? So you have Palermo, you've got Recoleta, you've got Belgrano, which is fairly close to Palermo, a little bit closer to the water side. And the cool thing about Palermo is that it has this core like around Plaza Serrano, nightlife, restaurant area. But if you go closer to the Aeroparque, which is the city airport in Buenos Aires, there's a lot of like high rises along Highway Santa Fe or Santa Fe Avenue where you can stay longer term. And then if you even go further than that, you can get into like Palermo Chico or Barrio Norte, which has some of like the embassies, some museums, some fancier places to stay. So there's quite a lot of selection all within this area. I think it's really interesting compared to something like, let's use Medellin, Colombia as an example. You have El Poblado, which is generally the most like popular tourist neighborhood to stay in. Then you have like Laureles, which is also like fairly safe and new and modern, but they're very far apart and it's not easy to walk between them. I think BA has something really, really unique in the sense that Palermo up to Belgrano, over to Recoleta, to Barrio Norte, to Palermo Chico, it's all kind of connected and there's very few like dark spots between it that you would run into issues. Now, I'm not saying like you're never gonna have problems in these areas, don't get me wrong, but these are generally safer, more expensive neighborhoods that are well policed and are well secured. Outside of that, you've got things like San Telmo, Puerto Madero, Villa Crespo, which is again pretty close to Palermo, that are constantly growing and becoming more expensive and more safe. So how are people having issues? Well, I saw a TikTok the other day of one of these girls doing the world cruise on Royal Caribbean. I'm not sure if anyone's been familiar with that. Pretty cool. It's like 270-day cruise, goes to like 150 different destinations, 60 countries, all 7 continents. Really, really cool thing. Don't get me wrong. I saw a video of her, and I think she's South African, the video I saw, and again, nothing against this girl in particular, but I saw she was in Montevideo, Uruguay. And the TikTok and the video she posted, she's wearing like a really fancy looking purse, and she's like done up with like a brand new pair of white shoes and jeans, and like she's like really, really put together, and it's extremely obvious that this girl is not from Uruguay. And then she put up a picture with her parents, and her dad had like a Rolex on, and her mom had a Louis Vuitton hat. And it's just like little things like this are just gonna make you infinitely more likely to run into problems. And I'm gonna lean on the fact that maybe she was just ignorant to the fact that she's in South America and not in like Paris or London where you can dress like that and not have problems. And I'm not gonna say that she's 100% going to have an issue, but when you dress like you have money, you look like you don't blend in, it's just going to make you an easier target for people. So I always recommend, if you can, travel a little bit lighter and go to a thrift store once you get to those countries and buy clothes that other locals are wearing. Now, this is relevant for places where you can actually blend in. I'm obviously extremely white looking, so no matter what I wear in Peru or Colombia, I'm going to stand out, no matter what I wear. Even now that my Spanish has gotten pretty good and I'm able to handle myself on the street pretty well, it's obvious I look like a foreigner just because my skin tone will just never match that. But in a lot of the world, you can get away with looking like a local. In Argentina, most people look relatively like me. So as long as I'm not dressed like an asshole, I don't really have any problems. I can speak decent enough Spanish to get by. Now, just to kind of close the loop on what I was saying with this TikTok, it's just so apparent that you're a tourist, that you're a foreigner, that you're not from there, that anyone who is going to potentially rob someone, if they see you, it's kind of like, well, shit, there's the rich family that's not from here. That's going to be an easy target. Like, do your best to try and fit in as easily as you can. Try not to draw attention to yourselves. Stay in the safe areas. This is traveling 101, but I think some people kind of they let their guard down after being in a place for a little too long, or maybe they're just ignorant. They've never been there before, and they maybe haven't traveled. They haven't had any issues. But it is out there, and it does happen to people. So I don't want this to keep happening. It is the reality of when you're going to poorer countries. There are people who really just need money. So if that's the easiest way for them to get it, that is what it is. To get back to what I was talking about at the beginning, our 2 friends who had their phone stolen. Were they in terrible danger when it happened? No, absolutely. They got pickpocketed out of their like purses or crossbody bags while we were in a nightclub. No one like held the shank to their throat and made them give up their shit. Just simple, to be honest, smart pickpocketing where you're in a club where you're skin to skin with other people. You don't really notice what's going on around you. Pretty simple for it to happen. So I always recommend trying to keep anything that's super valuable to you in like tighter pockets on your front. It's much, much harder for you to get pickpocketed from your front pockets. The backs, they just tend to be looser and you're not paying as much attention. All of a sudden you bump into someone, they say sorry, and then your phone's gone. So I think try and make it as difficult as you can. The important thing to keep in mind too is if you are going to be a victim of some sort of violent robbery, it doesn't matter where the hell you're gonna put your shit, they're gonna take it all. So, I've seen different posts of people saying, keep a burner phone on you, keep a second wallet, and like maybe that's gonna work, but the reality is if someone's gonna hold a gun to you or a knife to you and take all your shit, you're not gonna be really hiding it. They're gonna just like take everything you have. So overall, would I say Buenos Aires is pretty safe? I mean, of the cities I've been to, I have not had any issues here personally. I am fairly well traveled and I'm always like pretty conscious about my surroundings and try not to get like too drunk by myself, and I don't walk home unless I absolutely need to or it's like during the day. So generally, safety precautions here are going to go a long way for you staying relatively secure and safe as you're in BA. Most people come here without any issue. It's not a city that has a high crime index. They have one of the lowest crime indexes of any major capital city in South America. So now we talked about where you should stay, how you should dress, what you should pay attention to, a couple other random things that I've noticed here in Buenos Aires. I'll tell you another story. I was reading Reddit the other day and I saw this guy got robbed in Buenos Aires. He said his phone got stolen by sitting at a patio cafe table somewhere in Palermo. And this is an extremely common scam. I've seen this in pretty much every Latin country I've been to. It's very, very unfortunate, but it's child exploitation where they use kids to actually do a lot of the thieving. Reason being, if you see like a 5 to 10-year-old kid, your guard is going to be immediately a lot lower than it is to like an intimidating 25 to 35-year-old man. Why is that? Well, pretty obvious. You're physically a lot bigger than that person, mentally a lot smarter, like you should be able to handle yourself against a child, one would think. So you just naturally have a lot less defenses. But that's how they get you. And that's how I've seen a lot of this shit over the different countries I've been to. And what they'll do is they'll come up to your tables and they'll essentially like put like a pair of socks or a pen or something on your table. And the idea is if you move it or if you touch it, you have to pay for it or give them cash. But that's really not the whole scam because they're not doing that for a buck or two trying to get that to happen. What they sometimes will do is they'll put the socks near your phone, right, on the table. Then all of a sudden they come back to pick up the socks, grab your phone with it, and they dart. And then by the time you've realized that your phone's gone, that kid is gone. And then you'll go to find my iPhone, it's turned off, you're never seeing that phone again. Don't even bother going to the police station, they really won't do much about it. Even in like Canada, if that happens, they're not really gonna do much. There's not too much they can do. If you have Find My iPhone and you can find it, maybe you get it back. Maybe there's a good Samaritan who will actually return it, but who knows? So just like really keep an eye on your stuff. Like you're not at home. I think this is like the most important thing for people to realize, and especially like my friends who've never traveled like that much outside of Canada. One of the things they have a problem with is they just get used to this sense of security when you're at home in such a safe country. Then they get down to a place like this where it's not, and they just get, they just become a victim of opportunity crime. I would say that's probably the most common, is just people stealing shit because it was presented in front of them, not necessarily like they went out of their way to do it. Other things you can do, a crossbody bag actually does work pretty well for keeping your things close to you and in front of you. The worst thing you do is like a backpack with a camera in it. If you're on a bus, if you're on the subway, if you're walking down the street even, it's really, really easy for someone to grab that. But if you have like, let's say a crossbody bag and you have your phone, your wallet in there, they'd essentially have to violently rob you for you to take that. If you don't see that someone is unzipping your crossbody bag in front of you that's strapped to your chest, like you're passed out or something. Like that is like basic vision in front of you. So that's a couple of my tips to stay safe in Buenos Aires. I do want to just like preface again that you are not at home. This is a foreign country that has a lot of economical issues. There are people who are doing worse than you are if you're fortunate enough to be able to travel here. So do not let your guard down, always be vigilant. If you can, always stay in groups. On average, the people who are getting robbed are by themselves. If there is any pickpocketing, it's because the opportunity presented itself. I've never personally had an issue. Most of my close friends have not had an issue. It's just a matter of bad luck, wrong place, wrong time sometimes, and that's kind of just the way it is. Overall, I love Buenos Aires. I'm so glad to be back here. The city is beautiful. The people are friendly. The food is good. The weather's nice. And I couldn't recommend coming here more. But if you do, just make sure you are paying attention to what's going on around you. And at the end of the day, try not to have anything super valuable stored on your phone because something bad could happen. But that's gonna be the video. Hopefully it was useful to hear a little bit about my experiences. I know more and more people are looking at traveling to South America as the flights to Europe and Asia just continue to get more and more expensive. So I thought I'd share my perspective on BA. I love this city. It's a beautiful place to come and I highly, highly recommend it, but just be careful when you get here. Hopefully this video was useful. As always, my name's Alex. Welcome back to Lifting Nomad. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.